Hello students, I'm Sunil and today we are going to discuss how we can find domain and range of a function. So first we are going to discuss how we can find domain. So what is the meaning of domain? Domain means the value of independent variable for which function is defined. Suppose I just take one example. So we have function f(x) equal to x plus 3. And if I ask you find the domain of the function, so you have to find the value of independent variable. Independent variable means the value of x. So we have to find the value of x for which this function is defined. So just think about it. There is any value of x for which this function is not defined. So there is no value of x for which this function is not defined. You can put any value from negative infinity to positive infinity. This function is defined for all real values of x. Okay, you can draw the graph of this function also. If we draw the graph of this function, it's graph like this. So this is y-axis, this is x-axis. Okay, if we draw the graph of this function, it's graph like this, so you can check the value of x changes from negative infinity to positive infinity. So here this function is defined for all real values of x. So what we can say about the domain? So domain of this function is all real numbers. Okay, just take one more example. Suppose we have function like this, f(x) is equal to x over x minus 3. If I ask you find the domain of this function, so you can put any value of x except 3. If you put x equal to 3, then this denominator becomes 0. Okay, so if we put 3, then this become like this. 3 over 3 minus 3 means 3 over 0, and we know division with 0 is not defined. Okay, so no need to draw the graph. Just check where the function is not defined. So if I ask you what's the domain of this function, so domain of this function or real number except 3. You can write in this way also, domain of function. So I'm just writing df belong to negative infinity to 3 union 3 to infinity. Okay, just take one more example. So suppose we have a function like this, f(x) is equal to square root of x square minus 7x plus 12. If I ask you find the domain of this function, so any root of a negative number is not defined. If I ask you what should be the value of negative root 3, so there is no real value of this. So if I ask you find the domain of this function, so this function is defined only when the value inside the square root is greater than or equal to 0. Any root of a negative number is not defined. Okay, so first we have to consider x square minus 7x plus 12, this expression must be greater than equal to 0. Okay, now we have to solve this inequality. So you can factorize this inequality. You know how we can factorize this inequality. So this is a quadratic function, so you can use middle term splitting concept. Okay, so I'm just going to factorize this. So negative 3x minus negative 4x 12. Okay, so because the the product of leading coefficient and constant term is 12, so we have to break this 7 into two parts such that their product is negative, sorry, their product is 12. So we can break 7 like negative 3 and negative 4. Okay, so now we can factorize this. We can factor out x from these first two terms, so it's x minus 3 and negative 4 from next two terms. So it's become x minus 3 times x minus 4 greater than equal to 0. Okay, now we have to find the value of x for which this inequality is greater than equal to 0. So you can put these critical point on number line. So what is the critical point here? So critical point means the value of x for which this inequality becomes 0. So here we have two values, x is equal to 3 and x is equal to 4. So just put these value on the number line. So suppose here we have 3 and here we have 4. So these are the critical points. Now we have to start from right hand side of greatest critical point. So like goes like this: positive, always start from positive, then negative, because this inequality is greater than equal to 0, and positive. So because this inequality is greater than equal to 0, so we have to consider only those values for which we have positive here. Okay, so we can consider 4 means x should be greater than 4 or less than 3. So here the value of x, so x lies in the interval negative infinity to 3 union 4 to infinity. So I think it is clear to you. What is the meaning of domain? So domain means the value of independent variable for which your function is defined. Okay. Now what is the meaning of range? So range means it's just reverse of domain. Range means the value of fx for which x is defined. So suppose here we have fx is equal to, suppose I'm just taking very basic example, x plus 3. So if I ask you what is the range of this function, so we have to find the value of fx for which x is defined. So if you want to find range, I advise the student better to write this function x is equal to. So x is equal to what? X is equal to, you can transpose this 3 on this side. So fx minus 3. Okay. Now, if I ask you there is any value of fx for this function is not defined, so there is no value of fx. You can put any value in place of fx. Okay, x is always defined. So here we can say range of the function belong to or real number. But if we take next example, suppose I'm just going to take another example, fx is equal to, this is another example, fx is equal to x over x minus 3. And if I ask you find the range of this function, so first we have to write this function x is equal to. So how we can write x is equal to? So just replace this fx as y. If you want to write fx only, you can write fx, but better to replace this function as y, because somehow the arrangement become more easier if we replace fx with y. So now we can cross multiply like this. Okay, here we have nothing, so just consider here we have 1. So this become xy minus 3y is equal to x. Now you can transpose 3y on this side and x on this side. So it's become xy minus x is equal to 3y. Now you can factor out x from the left hand side. So it's become y minus 1 is equal to 3y. So if I ask you x is equal to what? X is equal to, just divide both sides by y minus 1. So it's 3y over y minus 1. So now you have to find range, you have to find the value of y, because y is equal to what? Y is equal to fx. So you have to find the value of y for which x is defined. So you know, x is not defined if y become equal to 1. If we put 1 here, it's become like this. 3 times 1 over 1 minus 1 means 3 over 0, and you know, division with 0 is not defined. So x is defined for all real values of y except 1. So if I ask you what should be the range of this function, so range of this function is negative infinity to 1 union 1 to infinity. Or you can write in this way also, all real numbers excluding 1, like this also. Okay, so in this way we can find domain and range. Hope this concept is clear to you. Okay, thank you.